You don't need to hope you'll win. You need to walk like it's already done. The battle is not the test, it's the stage. Your real war is with hesitation, with doubt, with delay. Musashi didn't enter duels wondering, he entered knowing. Because his preparation was complete, his presence sharp, and his mind already victorious. You act as if you've won, not to deceive the world, but to command yourself. When your posture speaks certainty, the enemy folds before the blade is drawn. That's not arrogance, that's earned belief. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? Listen carefully. Most men walk into battle hoping they are strong enough. I walked in knowing I was prepared enough. There is a difference between hoping and knowing. Hope is what you do when you haven't done the work. Knowing is what you carry when you have. The way you walk tells the world who you are before you speak a word. The way you stand tells your enemy what they're facing before you draw steel. Your body speaks before your mouth opens. Your presence arrives before you do. This is not philosophy. This is warfare, and warfare begins with how you carry yourself. But let me ask you this. When you walk into a room, do you walk like someone who belongs there? Or do you walk like someone asking permission to exist when you face a challenge? Do you move like victory is inevitable? Or do you move like defeat is possible? Your enemy reads your doubt before you feel it. They smell your hesitation before you know it exists. They see your uncertainty in the angle of your shoulders, the rhythm of your breathing, the steadiness of your gaze. You cannot hide what you have not conquered within yourself. Confidence doesn't come from chance. It comes from knowing you did the work. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't announce itself because it doesn't need to. It simply exists. It moves through space like water flows downhill, naturally, inevitably, without resistance. I trained in snow. I trained in rain. I trained when my body screamed for rest and my mind begged for distraction. I trained until my sword became an extension of my will, until my movement became as natural as breathing. When I walked to meet an opponent, I carried 10,000 hours of preparation in my spine. This is what most people don't understand about mastery. They think confidence is something you summon in the moment. They think presence is something you put on like armor. But true confidence is built in solitude. True presence is forged in repetition. True certainty is earned through relentless preparation. You cannot fake the walk of someone who has done the work. You cannot imitate the stillness of someone who has conquered their own mind. You cannot counterfeit the presence of someone who has already won the battle within themselves. When you have prepared completely, when you have trained beyond the point of doubt, when you have done the work that others avoided, then you don't walk hoping for victory. You walk carrying it. You don't enter the arena wondering if you're ready. You enter knowing you've been ready for months. Your opponents will feel this before you speak. They will sense it before you move. They will know somewhere deep in their bones that they are not facing someone who hopes to win. They are facing someone who has already won. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is loud, desperate, uncertain. This is earned belief, quiet, steady, unshakable. This is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. This is what happens when you stop asking if you're ready and start walking like you've been ready all along. Walk like it's already done, because if you've done the work, it already is. The duel begins before you draw your sword. The victory is decided before you move your feet. Your enemy feels your presence like a stone, feels the weight of the mountain above it. This is not mysticism. This is psychology. This is warfare conducted at the level of the mind. I learned this truth on the island of Ganryu. My opponent was Sasaki Kojiro, the greatest swordsman of his generation, fast as lightning, deadly as winter. He had killed dozens of men with a blade longer than most warriors could even lift. But I defeated him before our swords ever met. How? I arrived late. Not from laziness, not from fear, from strategy. While he stood on that beach, his mind began to betray him. Minutes passed, then hours. The sun climbed higher. His certainty began to crack. His rhythm began to break. His presence began to scatter. When I finally appeared, I had already won. He felt it immediately. In my lateness, he read my indifference to his reputation. In my calm, he sensed his own growing agitation. In my stillness, he felt his own energy dissipating like steam. Here's what most people don't understand about power. Real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. Real power is felt, not seen. It moves through a room like gravity, invisible but undeniable. Everyone feels it. No one can explain it. Your presence is your first weapon. Your energy is your first strike. Before you speak, before you move, before you act, you are already communicating. You are already fighting. You are already winning or losing based on what others feel when they encounter you. But let me ask you this. When you enter a room, what do people feel? Do they feel the weight of someone who has mastered themselves? Or do they feel the uncertainty of someone still fighting their own doubts? Energy cannot be hidden. Confidence cannot be faked. Presence cannot be borrowed. These things exist or they don't. They radiate or they collapse. They command or they beg. I have seen strong men crumble because they carried weakness in their spirit. I have seen small men dominate because they carried certainty in their bones. Size matters less than presence. Skill matters less than conviction. Speed matters less than inevitability. When you know, truly know that you belong in the fight, your enemy feels it instantly. When you carry the quiet certainty of someone who has prepared completely, it disturbs their mental equilibrium. When you move with the rhythm of someone who has already seen the outcome, it breaks their concentration before the first exchange. This is psychological warfare at its purest. You don't defeat them with technique. You defeat them with presence. You don't overcome them with speed. You overcome them with certainty. You don't outfight them. You out-exist them. I remember facing opponents who were faster than me, stronger than me, more experienced than me, but I had something they lacked, the unshakable knowledge that I had prepared for this moment more completely than they had. That knowledge radiated from me like heat from forge fire. They felt it immediately, in the way I stood, in the way I breathed, in the way I looked at them, not with aggression, but with the calm assessment of someone who had already calculated the outcome. They began to doubt themselves before we even began. This is the difference between confidence and presence. Confidence can be loud, desperate, performative. Presence is always quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself because it simply is. It doesn't need to convince because it already knows. Your enemy will feel your presence in their chest, in their breathing, in the way their thoughts begin to scatter. They will sense that they are not facing someone who hopes to win, but someone who has already won in every way that matters. Victory begins in the posture, the breath, the gaze. Make them feel it. Make them know without words, without movement, without sound, that they are standing across from inevitability itself. The battle is already half over before you draw steel. Win it there first. You prepare until there is no hesitation, only movement, only execution. Training is not about repetition. Training is about elimination. You eliminate doubt. You eliminate hesitation. You eliminate the gap between thought and action until they become one thing. I trained until my sword moved without my mind commanding it. I trained until my feet found their position without my eyes searching for it. I trained until combat became as natural as breathing, as inevitable as sunrise, as automatic as heartbeat. Most warriors train until they are tired. I trained until doubt was impossible. There is a difference. One builds the body, the other forges the soul. When you train correctly, something shifts inside you. The question changes from, "Can I do this?" to, "When will I do this?" The uncertainty transforms into patience. The fear becomes focus. The doubt dies and something else takes its place, knowing. But here's what most people don't understand about true preparation. It's not about learning new techniques. It's about making the techniques you know so deeply ingrained that they happen without thought. It's about training your body to move while your mind stays still. I spent years perfecting the same basic cuts, not because I didn't know other techniques, because I wanted these techniques to become part of my nervous system. I wanted them to happen faster than thought, deeper than reflex, more automatically than instinct. Training ends when doubt ends, not when you feel strong, not when you feel ready. When doubt becomes impossible because preparation has made it irrelevant, let me ask you this. In your field, in your craft, in your life, are you still training to feel confident? Or are you training until confidence becomes unnecessary because competence has made it automatic? There's a moment in every true warrior's development when something fundamental changes. The sword stops feeling like a tool you hold and becomes an extension of who you are. The technique stops being something you do and becomes something you are. This transformation doesn't happen through inspiration. It happens through repetition, relentless, focused, intelligent repetition. You do the same movement 10,000 times until it happens without your permission, until it becomes as natural as closing your eyes when you sleep. I practiced cutting at the same angle until I could reproduce it perfectly in darkness, in rain, in exhaustion, in fury, in perfect calm. The angle became part of my body's memory. The timing became part of my breathing. The distance became part of my spatial awareness. When the real fight came, I didn't have to think about technique. My body knew what to do. My training took over. My preparation guided my movement while my mind stayed clear, observant, present. This is what separates masters from students. Students think about what they're doing. Masters simply do what they've trained to do. Students rely on consciousness. Masters trust the unconscious competence they've built through years of deliberate practice. You don't stop training when you get good. You stop training when doubt becomes impossible, when hesitation dies, when the gap between decision and execution disappears completely. I have seen warriors with tremendous natural talent fail because they never eliminated doubt from their system. I have seen average fighters become legendary because they trained until doubt was not just conquered, it was extinct. Training ends when your body moves faster than your fear can think, when your skill operates beyond the reach of anxiety, when your competence runs so deep that external pressure cannot disturb your internal rhythm. Here's what most people don't understand about mastery. They think it's about being able to perform under pressure. Real mastery is about training so completely that pressure becomes irrelevant. You don't rise to the occasion, you bring the occasion down to your level of preparation. When someone faces you who has trained until doubt ends, they feel it immediately. They sense that they are not competing against technique or talent. They are competing against preparation so complete that failure has become impossible. You prepare until there is no hesitation, only movement, only execution. Train until doubt dies. Then stop training and start executing. You don't wait for openings. You create them. Then you walk through. Permission is for the uncertain. Commands are for the prepared. The moment you ask if you should act, you have already lost the moment when action was possible. I never waited for my opponents to make the first move. I never sought their permission to begin. I created the conditions I needed, then moved through them like water flows through a broken dam. Naturally, powerfully, inevitably, the weak wait for perfect conditions. The strong create the conditions they need. The weak ask if the timing is right. The strong make the timing right by acting. But let me ask you this. How many opportunities have you lost because you waited for someone else to give you permission to seize them? How many moments have slipped past because you were looking for a sign instead of creating the signal yourself? Most people live their entire lives waiting for permission. Permission to speak, permission to act, permission to take what they've earned, permission to become who they were meant to be. They wait and wait until the opportunity passes to someone who didn't ask, someone who simply took. I learned this lesson early. On the battlefield, hesitation is death. In the duel, delay is defeat. In life, asking for permission is surrendering your power to people who may not want you to have it. When I faced the Yoshioka school, I didn't ask for a formal challenge. I didn't wait for them to accept my terms. I created the confrontation. On my timeline, in my way, under the conditions that favored my strengths. I commanded the moment instead of begging for it. This is what most people don't understand about power. Real power doesn't ask. It acts. Real strength doesn't seek approval. It creates reality. Real mastery doesn't wait for the right moment. It makes any moment the right moment. You create openings by moving when others are thinking. You create advantage by acting while others are calculating. You create victory by commanding the space that others are still asking permission to enter. The moment belongs to whoever takes it first. The opportunity belongs to whoever acts on it fastest. The victory belongs to whoever stops asking and starts doing. I have watched countless talented warriors lose fights they should have won because they waited for permission from their fear, from their doubt, from their need to be certain before they moved. By the time they decided to act, the moment had passed to someone who never needed to decide, someone who simply acted. When you command the moment, something fundamental shifts in the dynamic. You stop being reactive and become creative. You stop responding to what is happening and start determining what will happen. You stop asking what's possible and start deciding what's inevitable. This doesn't mean you act recklessly. This doesn't mean you ignore preparation or abandon strategy. This means that once you have prepared, once you have trained, once you have sharpened your skills, you act with the full authority of your preparation. The prepared don't need permission because they have already earned the right through their work. The trained don't need approval because their competence speaks louder than any authority could. The ready don't need a sign because they have become the sign others wait for. Command doesn't come from position. Command comes from preparation, meeting decisive action. Command comes from knowing you have done the work and then moving with the full weight of that knowledge behind you. When you stop asking for permission and start commanding moments, people feel the difference immediately. They sense that they are not dealing with someone who hopes things will work out. They are dealing with someone who makes things work out. You don't wait for openings. You create them by moving when others hesitate. You don't ask for opportunities. You create them by acting when others are still thinking. You don't seek permission. You command the moment through the authority of your preparation. The moment is yours if you take it. The opening exists if you create it. The victory awaits if you command it. Stop asking. Start commanding. The moment is waiting for someone who won't ask for permission to seize it. If your body says, maybe, you've already lost. Move with inevitability. Your body tells the truth that your mind tries to hide. Your posture speaks louder than your words. Your movement reveals more than your intentions. Victory lives in your bones before it lives anywhere else. I could tell the outcome of a duel by watching how my opponent walked to meet me, not by their reputation, not by their weapon, by how they carried themselves. Winners move differently than losers. Masters move differently than students. The inevitable moves differently than the hopeful. Your body cannot lie. It carries your true level of preparation. It reveals your real confidence. It displays your actual readiness. You can fool your mind. You can fool others. You cannot fool the wisdom of your own physical presence. When you have truly prepared, your body knows it. When you have trained completely, your muscles remember it. When you have earned your confidence through work, your posture carries it automatically. This is not something you can fake or force. This is something you build through relentless preparation. But here's what most people don't understand about physical presence. It's not about looking strong. It's about being strong. It's not about appearing confident. It's about carrying the quiet certainty that comes from having done the work. I have seen powerful men shrink when they faced a challenge they hadn't prepared for. I have seen small men expand when they encountered a situation they had mastered completely. The body knows the truth. The body cannot pretend. Let me ask you this. When you walk into an important moment, does your body carry victory or hope? Does your posture speak certainty or possibility? Does your movement suggest inevitability or chance? The outcome already lives in your preparation. Your body simply displays what your training has created. If you have prepared completely, your body moves with the authority of someone who has already won. If you have trained inadequately, your body betrays your uncertainty before you speak. This is why I spent so much time training my body to move as if victory was already guaranteed, not through arrogance, but through preparation so complete that doubt became impossible. My body learned to carry the outcome before my mind even engaged the problem. When you carry the outcome in your body, your opponents feel it immediately. They sense that they are not facing someone who hopes to win. They are facing someone whose very presence suggests that winning is the only possible result. Your spine speaks your true confidence level. Your shoulders display your actual preparation. Your breathing reveals your real readiness. Your movement announces whether you belong in this moment or whether you're hoping to survive it. I trained until my body moved with the rhythm of inevitability, until my stance spoke permanence, until my grip suggested that victory was not something I was trying to achieve, but something I was carrying with me. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens through thousands of hours of preparation, where you train your body to move as if success is guaranteed. You rehearse victory until your muscles remember it. You practice confidence until your posture embodies it. The body learns what the mind teaches it through repetition. If you practice doubt, your body will carry doubt. If you practice certainty, your body will radiate certainty. If you rehearse victory, your body will move with the authority of someone who has already won. When the real moment comes, your body takes over. Your training guides your movement. Your preparation controls your presence. You don't have to think about confidence because your body has learned to carry it automatically. Your opponents read this instantly. They feel the difference between someone who is trying to win and someone who has already won in every way that matters. They sense the gap between hope and inevitability. Move with inevitability. Let your body speak the victory that your preparation has already earned. Carry the outcome in your bones, in your breath, in the way you occupy space. If your body says maybe, you haven't prepared enough. If your body says definitely, you're ready to execute. Your body knows the truth. Make sure the truth it knows is victory. The more certain you are, the quieter you become. Calm wins. Noise is the sound of uncertainty trying to convince itself it knows what it's doing. Stillness is the silence of mastery that needs no convincing because it already knows. I discovered this truth in my first real duel. My opponent was older, stronger, more experienced. He talked constantly before we fought. He gestured, he paced, he explained his techniques, he told stories of his victories. With every word, he revealed his need to convince himself he was ready. Said nothing. I stood still. I watched. I waited. By the time we crossed swords, he had exhausted half his energy trying to prove to himself what I already knew about myself. Stillness had already won the psychological battle. Mastery speaks in silence. Confidence moves in calm. Certainty operates in stillness. When you truly know, you don't need to announce it. When you're genuinely prepared, you don't need to prove it. When you've earned your place, you don't need to defend it. But let me ask you this. When you're facing a challenge, do you fill the space with words? Do you explain your qualifications? Do you justify your presence? Or do you simply exist with the quiet authority of someone who belongs exactly where they are? The untrained compensate for uncertainty with noise. They talk to fill the silence that their doubt cannot stand. They move to distract from the stillness that would reveal their unreadiness. They perform to avoid the calm that would expose their lack of preparation. The master does the opposite. The more pressure increases, the quieter they become. The more chaos surrounds them, the stiller they remain. The more urgent the moment becomes, the calmer their presence grows. This is not passivity. This is power conservation. This is energy management. This is the wisdom of someone who has learned that stillness is not the absence of action. It's the presence of readiness. I learned to find the still point in the center of any storm. In the middle of combat, I found calm. In the heart of danger, I discovered peace. In the eye of uncertainty, I located absolute clarity. This stillness became my greatest weapon. Not because it made me passive, but because it made me precise. Not because it slowed me down, but because it eliminated all unnecessary movement. Not because it made me weak, but because it concentrated all my strength into exactly the right moment. When you operate from stillness, your opponents cannot read your intentions. When you move from calm, your actions become unpredictable. When you strike from silence, your attack arrives without warning. Stillness confuses those who operate. From chaos, calm disturbs those who live in constant motion. Silence unnerves those who fill every moment with noise. Your stillness becomes their agitation. Your calm becomes their anxiety. Your silence becomes their compulsion to fill the space with words that reveal more than they intended. This is the language of mastery. It speaks without words. It communicates through presence. It commands through stillness, rather than demanding through noise. I have seen warriors defeat themselves simply by encountering someone who carried true stillness. They couldn't handle the silence. They couldn't bear the calm. They broke their own rhythm trying to disturb someone who had found the unshakable center. The more certain you are, the quieter you become. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you have nothing to prove. Not because you lack confidence, but because your confidence needs no external validation. Real power whispers. Real strength moves in silence. Real mastery operates from a place of such deep stillness that action, when it comes, appears effortless and inevitable. Calm wins. Not through passivity, but through the complete conservation of energy until the precise moment when that energy is needed. Not through inaction, but through the elimination of all unnecessary action. Find your stillness, cultivate your calm, master your silence. Let others fill the space with noise while you fill yourself with readiness. The more certain you are, the quieter you become. In that quiet, victory waits. You don't avoid opposition. You absorb it without losing direction. Resistance is not your enemy. Resistance is information. It tells you exactly where your path leads and how committed you are to walking it. I never expected easy victories. I prepared for difficult ones. I never counted on cooperation. I trained for opposition. I never assumed acceptance. I developed the strength to continue without it. Every master faces the same test. Not the test of skill against skill, but the test of will against resistance. The question is never whether you'll face opposition. The question is whether you'll remain yourself when you do. Most people change who they are when they encounter resistance. They adjust their direction. They moderate their intensity. They compromise their vision. They let opposition reshape them instead of using opposition to reveal who they really are. But here's what most people don't understand about resistance. It's not trying to stop you. It's trying to test you. It's not your enemy. It's your teacher. It's showing you exactly what level of commitment your goal requires. I faced opposition from other schools, from established masters, from political powers, from students who thought they knew better, from critics who had never held a sword. Each form of resistance taught me something different about my own resolve. The opposition from other schools taught me that mastery threatens mediocrity. The resistance from established masters taught me that innovation disturbs tradition. The pushback from political powers taught me that independence challenges control. Let me ask you this. When you face resistance, do you take it personally? Do you let it change your direction? Do you allow it to diminish your commitment? Or do you use it as information about how important your path really is? Strong currents only form around significant obstacles. Heavy resistance only appears around valuable objectives. Serious opposition only emerges around ideas that matter. If what you're doing isn't generating any resistance, you're probably not doing anything significant. If your direction isn't creating any opposition, your direction probably isn't leading anywhere important. I learned to gauge the value of my path by the intensity of the resistance it generated. The stronger the pushback, the more certain I became that I was moving towards something worth reaching. This doesn't mean you seek conflict for its own sake. This means you don't let the inevitable conflicts deflect you from your chosen course. You don't avoid opposition. You don't court it either. You simply acknowledge it as part of the landscape of any meaningful journey. When resistance comes, and it will come, you absorb it without losing your essential direction. Like a mountain absorbs wind without changing its fundamental nature. Like water absorbs obstacles without abandoning its destination. You remain unshaken, not because you're unmoved by opposition, but because you're more committed to your path than you are disturbed by the resistance to it. Your direction becomes stronger than the forces trying to change it. I have seen warriors abandon their training at the first sign of difficulty. I have seen students change schools when challenged by their first real test. I have seen masters compromise their principles when faced with sustained criticism, but I have also seen others use resistance as fuel. They let opposition clarify their commitment. They allowed pushback to strengthen their resolve. They transformed criticism into deeper understanding of their own path. The difference is simple. Some people expect the path to be smooth and become discouraged when it isn't. Others expect the path to be difficult and become strengthened by meeting the difficulty they prepared for. Expect resistance. Plan for opposition. Prepare for pushback. Not because you want to encounter these things, but because encountering them is part of walking any path worth walking. When resistance comes, breathe deeper. When opposition appears, stand straighter. When pushback increases, commit more completely to the direction you've chosen. You don't avoid opposition. You absorb it without losing direction. You remain unshaken, not because you're untested, but because you've been tested and proven that your commitment runs deeper than any resistance you'll face. Expect resistance. Remain unshaken. Let opposition reveal the depth of your dedication rather than the limits of your endurance. Overthinking is defeat in disguise. Empty your mind. Let the body lead. The mind that calculates loses to the body that simply acts. The consciousness that questions loses to the unconscious that simply knows. I fought my greatest battles with an empty mind, not because I didn't think, but because I had already done all the thinking during training. When the moment came, thought became obstacle. Analysis became hesitation. Consciousness became delay. The mind is a magnificent tool for preparation. It's a terrible tool for execution. Use your mind to plan. Use your body to perform. Use your intellect to prepare. Use your instincts to act. Most fighters lose battles in their heads before they lose them with their hands. They think themselves into hesitation. They analyze themselves into paralysis. They calculate themselves into defeat. But let me ask you this. How many opportunities have you lost because you thought too long instead of acting quickly enough? How many perfect moments have passed while you were still deciding if they were perfect? The time for thinking is before the battle. The time for analysis is during preparation. The time for calculation is in training. When the moment arrives, thinking becomes your enemy. I learned this through painful experience. In my early duels, I would try to outthink my opponents during combat. I would analyze their techniques while they were executing them. I would calculate angles while blades were moving. I would strategize while the fight was happening. This nearly cost me my life several times. My mind was working when my body needed to be moving. My consciousness was engaged when my reflexes needed to be free. My thinking was active when my training needed to take over. Then I discovered the power of the empty mind, not empty of skill, empty of interference, not empty of preparation, empty of second-guessing, not empty of knowledge, empty of the mental noise that prevents knowledge from flowing into action. When your mind is silent, your body becomes eloquent. When your thoughts are still, your movements become fluid. When your consciousness steps aside, your unconscious competence takes control. This is not mysticism. This is neurology. The conscious mind processes information slowly, sequentially, deliberately. The unconscious mind processes information instantly, simultaneously, automatically. In combat, speed wins. In performance, flow wins. In execution, instinct wins. I trained until my techniques lived in my muscle memory, not my mental memory. I practiced until my responses became automatic, not analytical. I prepared until my body knew what to do without my mind needing to tell it. When the real fight came, I could silence my mind and trust my training. I could empty my consciousness and rely on my preparation. I could stop thinking and start executing. Your opponents cannot predict what you haven't consciously decided. They cannot read intentions that exist below the level of thought. They cannot counter moves that flow from instinct rather than calculation. The empty mind is not the absent mind. The empty mind is the prepared mind that has moved beyond the need for conscious control. It's the trained mind that trusts the body to execute what years of practice have programmed. Silence the mind, not through meditation, though meditation helps, through preparation so complete that conscious thought becomes unnecessary, through training so thorough that the body can act while the mind stays still. This is the difference between trying and doing. Trying involves the mind. Doing involves the whole being. Trying analyzes, doing executes. Trying hesitates, doing flows. When you silence the mind, you don't become thoughtless. You become thoughtless. Your actions arise from a deeper place than conscious decision. They flow from the wisdom of preparation rather than the anxiety of improvisation. Empty your mind. Let the body lead. Trust your training. Silence the internal dialogue that questions every move, and let your preparation guide every action. Overthinking is defeat in disguise. The mind that questions loses to the body that simply knows. Sharpen your focus by silencing the noise. Let stillness create precision. Let emptiness create power. The empty mind is the sharpest weapon. Use it. They panic. You stay in pattern. They break. You stay in control. Emotion is the enemy of execution. Rhythm is the foundation of mastery. While others chase their feelings, you follow your training. I have defeated stronger opponents by staying in rhythm while they fell out of theirs. I have overcome faster enemies by maintaining my pattern while they abandoned theirs. I have conquered more skilled fighters by keeping my emotional temperature constant while theirs fluctuated wildly. Emotion makes you predictable. Fear makes you defensive. Anger makes you reckless. Excitement makes you careless. Frustration makes you hasty. Only rhythm makes you reliable. Your opponents will try to pull you into their emotional state. They will attempt to make you angry so you fight their fight. They will try to make you afraid so you lose your timing. They will work to make you excited so you abandon your strategy. Don't take the bait. Let them chase emotion while you stay in rhythm. Let them pursue feelings while you follow fundamentals. Let them react to circumstances while you create the circumstances through consistent action. But here's what most people don't understand about emotional control. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about not being controlled by it. It's not about feeling nothing. It's about not letting what you feel change what you do. I learned this lesson fighting opponents who were technically superior to me. They had better techniques, faster reflexes, more experience. But they had one weakness. They could be pulled out of their rhythm by emotional disruption. When they became angry, their timing changed. When they became frustrated, their patterns shifted. When they became excited, their discipline cracked. Their emotions became the opening I needed to defeat their superior skill. Let me ask you this. In your most important moments, do you stay in your rhythm, or do you get pulled into the emotional turbulence around you? Do you maintain your pattern, or do you let circumstances dictate your response? The master operates from a place deeper than emotion, not because they don't feel, but because they don't let feeling interfere with function. They experience emotion without being experienced by it. They feel the pressure without being pressured by the feeling. This is rhythm, consistent action, regardless of emotional weather. Reliable performance, independent of internal turbulence. Steady execution that continues whether you feel confident or uncertain, calm or agitated, prepared or surprised. Rhythm is what you do when you don't know what to do. Rhythm is your default setting when circumstances become unpredictable. Rhythm is your anchor when everything else is shifting. I developed a fighting rhythm that remained constant regardless of external pressure. Whether facing a novice or a master, whether fighting in sunlight or darkness, whether fresh or exhausted, my basic rhythm stayed the same. This rhythm became my foundation, my refuge, my reliable source of power. Your opponents cannot disrupt what they cannot change. If your rhythm depends on emotion, they can break it by manipulating your feelings. If your rhythm depends on circumstances, they can destroy it by changing conditions. But if your rhythm comes from something deeper, from training, from principle, from commitment, it becomes unbreakable. When others panic, their rhythm scatters. When others break, their patterns collapse. When others lose control, their timing disappears. But you stay in rhythm. You maintain your pattern. You keep your control. This doesn't mean you become robotic. This means you become reliable. Your responses come from training rather than emotion. Your actions flow from principle rather than impulse. Your performance emerges from pattern rather than feeling. They chase emotion like a dog chases its tail. Lots of movement, no progress, increasing, exhaustion. You stay in rhythm like water flows downhill, constant, inevitable, unstoppable. Let the enemy chase emotion. Let them pursue their feelings down dead ends and false paths. While they exhaust themselves reacting to internal turbulence, you continue, executing your plan with the steady reliability of someone who has found their unshakable center. They panic. You stay in pattern. They break. You stay in control. That's not cold, that's trained. That's not heartless, that's rhythmical. That's how mastery moves through chaos without being moved by it. Humility in training, authority in battle. That's the code. The mind that remains open during preparation becomes unshakable during execution. The ego that stays small in practice becomes large in performance. I approached every training session as if I knew nothing. I entered every real fight as if I knew everything. This wasn't contradiction. This was strategy. The student mind absorbs. The master mind executes. In training, I questioned everything, every technique, every assumption, every habit. I remained open to correction, hungry for improvement, willing to be wrong so I could become right. No ego, no defensiveness, no pretense of knowing what I hadn't yet learned. But when the real moment came, when steel met steel, when life met death, I switched modes completely. All questions ended, all doubt ceased, all hesitation died. I became the master who had earned the right to act with complete authority. This is the paradox of mastery. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. The more you prepare, the more humble you become about preparation. But when the moment demands action, all humility transforms into authority. Here's what most people don't understand about this code. They think humility means weakness. They think authority means arrogance. They confuse the student mind with the victim mind. They mistake the master mind for the ego mind. The student mind is not weak. The student mind is hungry. It seeks truth more than comfort. It values learning more than looking good. It prioritizes growth over being right. The mastermind is not arrogant. The mastermind is certain. It acts from knowledge earned through student-minded preparation. It executes with the authority of someone who has done the work. Let me ask you this. In your preparation, do you protect your ego or do you pursue improvement? In your execution, do you act with the authority your preparation has earned Or do you hesitate because you're still thinking like a student? I have seen warriors fail because they brought master mind to training and student mind to battle. They were unteachable in practice and uncertain in performance. They protected their ego when they should have challenged it, and doubted themselves when they should have trusted their preparation. The sequence matters. Student mind first, master mind. Second, never the reverse, never simultaneously. You cannot learn effectively while protecting your authority. You cannot execute effectively while questioning your preparation. In training, I let my teachers destroy my assumptions. I let my mistakes teach me. I let my failures guide me toward truth. I approached every lesson as if my life depended on learning it completely, because it did. When I stepped into real combat, everything changed. All the questions ended. All the uncertainty ceased. I became the embodiment of everything I had learned. I moved with the accumulated authority of 10,000 hours of student-minded preparation. This transformation is not automatic, it's trained. You practice switching from student mind to mastermind until the transition becomes instant. You rehearse moving from question mode to execution mode until it happens without conscious effort. The student mind asks, "What if I'm wrong?" The mastermind states, "I have prepared for this." The student mind wonders, "Am I ready?" The master mind declares, "I am here. Prepare like a student. Question everything. Challenge every assumption. Remain open to being corrected. Stay hungry for improvement. Let your ego die daily in the service of getting better. Execute like a master. Trust your training. Act with authority. Move with certainty. Embody the confidence that your preparation has earned. Stand in the power that your student mind has built. This is the code. Humility in training builds the foundation. Authority in battle stands on that foundation. The student mind earns the right for the master mind to act. You cannot fake this authority. You cannot borrow this confidence. You cannot counterfeit this certainty. It only comes from one source, the student mind that was willing to be wrong in practice so the master mind could be right in performance. Prepare like a student. Execute like a master. That's the code. That's the path. That's how earned authority emerges from chosen humility. Energy spent on words is energy stolen from clarity. Every word you speak before action weakens the action itself. Every explanation you give dilutes the power of your execution. I learned this lesson early. Before my first real duel, I spent hours explaining my techniques to anyone who would listen. I described my strategy. I justified my approach. I tried to convince others and myself that I was ready. By the time I faced my opponent, I had talked away half my power. My energy was scattered. My focus was diffused. My certainty had been replaced by the need for approval from people who would never hold a sword. After that, I adopted a different approach. I spoke little. I explained nothing. I justified nothing. I saved every ounce of energy for the moment. That mattered. I let my actions speak louder than my words ever could. Words are the enemy of presence. Explanation is the enemy of authority. Justification is the enemy of power. When you need to convince others of your readiness, you reveal that you're trying to convince yourself. But here's what most people don't understand about speaking little. It's not about being antisocial. It's not about being mysterious. It's about energy conservation and focus preservation. Every word you speak dissipates energy that could be directed toward execution. Every explanation you give scatters attention that could be concentrated on performance. Every justification you offer weakens the conviction that powers decisive action. The master speaks only when speech serves the objective. The master explains only when explanation advances the mission. The master justifies nothing because the master's results justify themselves. Let me ask you this. How much energy do you waste explaining what you're going to do instead of simply doing it? How much power do you dissipate talking about your plans instead of executing them? I have watched warriors defeat themselves with their own words. They talked themselves out of certainty. They explained themselves into doubt. They justified themselves into hesitation. They spent so much energy managing other people's perceptions that they had no energy left for managing their own performance. They became more concerned with how they appeared than with how they executed. This is the trap of the verbal warrior. They fight with words when they should fight with action. They seek victory in conversation when they should seek victory in execution. They try to win the argument when they should be winning the actual contest. Speak little, not because you have nothing to say, but because you have everything to do. Not because you lack confidence, but because your confidence needs no external validation. When you speak little, your words carry more weight. When you explain rarely, your explanations have more impact. When you justify nothing, your actions justify everything. The enemy learns nothing from your silence. They cannot predict your approach from your explanations. They cannot counter your strategy from your descriptions. Your silence preserves your advantage, while their words reveal their weaknesses. I made it a practice to listen more than I spoke, observe more than I explained, prepare more than I justified. This discipline concentrated my energy, sharpened my focus, and preserved my power for the moments when power was needed. Deliver fully. When you do act, when you do speak, when you do move, do it with the concentrated power of someone who has saved their energy for the crucial moment. Do it with the focused intensity of someone who hasn't scattered their attention through unnecessary communication. Your execution becomes more powerful when it emerges from silence. Your action carries more authority when it hasn't been weakened by explanation. Your results speak louder when your words haven't spoken first. The world is full of people who can talk about what they're going to do. The world is hungry for people who simply do what needs to be done. Be the latter. Speak little. Deliver fully. Let your results be your rhetoric. Let your execution be your explanation. Let your performance be your proof. Energy spent on words is energy stolen from clarity. Save your words. Spend your action. The victory belongs to those who deliver, not to those who describe. Winning is temporary. Mastery is forever. Winners celebrate today and prepare for tomorrow. Masters prepare so completely that celebration becomes unnecessary because victory becomes inevitable. I stopped trying to win duels and started becoming the type of person who couldn't lose them. This shift in focus changed everything. Instead of preparing for specific opponents, I prepared to become undefeatable. Instead of learning to beat particular techniques, I learned to transcend the need for specific counters. The mindset of winning focuses on the external. The mindset of mastery focuses on the internal. Winners ask, how do I beat this opponent? Masters ask, how do I become the kind of person this opponent cannot beat? This is not a subtle difference. This is a fundamental difference in how you approach preparation, training, and life itself. The winner's mindset is reactive. The master's mindset is creative. When you focus on winning, you prepare for specific scenarios. When you focus on becoming undefeatable, you prepare for unknown scenarios. When you train to win, you build strategies. When you train to become unlosable, you build character. But here's what most people don't understand about becoming undefeatable. It's not about being invincible in battle. It's about becoming so prepared, so skilled, so mentally developed that losing becomes practically impossible. I achieved this state not through natural talent, but through preparation so complete that it covered every possible weakness. I identified every way I could lose and then eliminated each possibility through specific training. Fear could make me lose, so I eliminated fear through exposure and preparation. Arrogance could make me lose, so I eliminated arrogance through continuous learning. Complacency could make me lose, so I eliminated complacency through constant challenge. Let me ask you this. Are you trying to win your next challenge? Or are you becoming the type of person who can't lose any challenge? Are you preparing for specific tests? Or are you developing into someone who passes every test? The master who can't lose has developed beyond the need for luck, beyond dependence on the opponent's mistakes, beyond reliance on favorable circumstances. They are prepared so completely that they create their own luck, force their own openings, generate their own favorable circumstances. This level of preparation requires a different relationship with training. You don't train until you feel ready. You train until readiness becomes your permanent state. You don't prepare until you're confident. You prepare until confidence becomes irrelevant because competence has made it automatic. I trained in every weather condition so weather couldn't defeat me. I practiced with every type of weapon so unfamiliarity couldn't defeat me. I fought against every style so surprise couldn't defeat me. I prepared for every scenario so the unexpected couldn't defeat me. This comprehensive preparation had an unexpected effect. I stopped worrying about winning because I had made losing practically impossible. I stopped thinking about victory because I had designed defeat out of my system. When you become the one who can't lose, several things happen. First, you stop needing to prove yourself because your preparation speaks for itself. Second, you stop fearing challenges because you've prepared for challenges beyond what you'll likely face. Third, and most importantly, you develop a different relationship with competition. You're not competing against others. You're demonstrating the level of preparation that makes competition irrelevant. This doesn't make you arrogant. This makes you certain. Arrogance believes it's better without proof. Certainty knows it's prepared beyond question. Arrogance hopes for the best. Certainty has trained for the worst. Forget winning. Winning is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Focus instead on becoming so prepared that every opportunity becomes a winning opportunity. Become the one who can't lose. Not because you're naturally superior, but because you've prepared more completely than anyone else is willing to prepare. Not because you're invincible, but because you've made yourself undefeatable through the depth of your commitment to excellence. Winning is temporary. Today's victory becomes yesterday's memory. But mastery accumulates, character compounds. The person who can't lose carries that capability into every situation, every challenge, every opportunity. Forget winning specific battles. Become the one who can't lose any battle. That's not arrogance. That's preparation. That's not fantasy. That's the result of training so completely that defeat becomes impossible. Half the battle is psychological. Act like you've already conquered it. The mind that believes it has already lost will find ways to lose. The mind that knows it has already won will find ways to win. I discovered this truth during my encounter with the Yoshioka school. Before I ever drew my sword, I had already won the psychological battle, not through intimidation, but through presence that communicated absolute certainty. They felt it the moment I arrived. In my posture, they read my confidence. In my breathing, they sensed my calm. In my gaze, they saw their own defeat reflected back at them. Half the conflict was resolved before the conflict began. This is not mysticism. This is psychology. Human beings are constantly reading each other's energy, confidence, and certainty levels. We sense threat and safety, strength and weakness, certainty and doubt before anyone speaks a word. Your presence communicates your true level of preparation. Your energy broadcasts your actual confidence. Your posture displays your real readiness. You cannot fake these things because they emerge from deep preparation, not surface performance. But here's what most people don't understand about presence that solves conflict. It's not about appearing threatening. It's about embodying certainty. It's not about looking dangerous. It's about carrying the quiet authority of someone who has already solved the problem. When you truly know you're prepared, when you genuinely trust your training, when you completely believe in your readiness, this certainty radiates from you like heat radiates from fire. Others feel it immediately and instinctively. Let me ask you this. When you enter a challenging situation, Does your presence communicate that you've already solved the problem? Or does it broadcast that you're hoping the problem will solve itself? Learned to walk into any confrontation as if the outcome had already been decided in my favor, not through arrogance, but through preparation so complete that doubt had become impossible. This mental shift changed everything about how conflicts unfolded. Instead of fighting against resistance, I moved through situations as if resistance was impossible. Instead of overcoming obstacles, I existed as if obstacles were irrelevant. The psychological effect on opponents was immediate and devastating. They began to doubt themselves before they doubted me. They questioned their own preparation before they tested mine. They wondered if they belonged in the fight before the fight even began. This is the power of presence that embodies certainty. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't need to. It simply exists with such quiet authority that conflict begins to resolve itself in favor of the person who carries that presence. Your opponents start making mistakes because they're fighting two battles, the external battle against you and the internal battle against their own growing doubt. They begin to defeat themselves while you simply maintain the presence that triggered their self-defeat. I have seen this principle work in situations far beyond physical combat. In negotiations, the person who truly believes they've already won often gets what they want without having to fight for it. In leadership, the person who carries genuine authority rarely has to assert it. In any challenging situation, the person whose presence communicates that they've already conquered the challenge often finds that the challenge conquers itself. This level of presence cannot be manufactured. It cannot be performed. It can only emerge from genuine preparation so complete that certainty becomes your natural state rather than your occasional feeling. Act like you've already conquered it, not through pretense, but through preparation. That makes conquest inevitable. Not through performance, but through the authentic confidence that comes from having done the work. Half the battle is psychological. Win that half before the external battle begins. Let your presence communicate what your preparation has already established, that the outcome has already been decided in your favor. When you embody this level of certainty, something remarkable happens. Conflicts begin to resolve themselves. Resistance begins to melt away. Obstacles begin to move aside. Not because you forced them to, but because your presence made it clear that their resistance was futile. Let your presence solve half the conflict. The other half will be much easier to handle when your opponents are already defeating themselves through their reaction to your unshakable certainty. Act like you've already conquered it, because if you've prepared completely, you have. You're not there to be liked. You're there to finish what began long ago. Proving seeks approval. Pleasing seeks acceptance. Moving seeks completion. Only completion matters. I spent too many early years trying to prove my worth to other warriors. I demonstrated techniques to gain respect. I explained my philosophy to win approval. I modified my approach to please critics. Every moment spent proving was a moment stolen from improving. Then I learned a simple truth. The sword doesn't care if you're liked. The enemy doesn't care if you're approved of. The moment doesn't care if you're accepted. Only your readiness matters. Only your execution matters. Only your results matter. When you try to prove yourself, you fight two battles: the actual battle and the approval battle. When you try to please others, you serve two masters: your objective and their opinion. When you seek acceptance, you divide your attention between performance and perception. This division weakens everything you do. Your focus scatters. Your energy dissipates. Your power reduces. You become less effective at the very thing you're trying to prove you're good at. But here's what most people don't understand about the need to prove and please. It comes from uncertainty about your own value. When you truly know your worth, when you genuinely trust your preparation, when you completely believe in your capability, you stop needing external validation. The master doesn't prove mastery. The master demonstrates mastery. The difference is intention. Proving seeks to convince others. Demonstrating seeks to complete the task. Let me ask you this. How much of your energy goes toward managing how others perceive your performance versus actually improving your performance? How much attention do you spend on looking competent versus actually being competent? I learned to enter every situation with one question: what needs to be done here? Not, how can I impress people? Not, how can I gain approval? Simply, what completion looks like and how do I achieve it? This shift in focus was liberating and powerful. When you stop trying to prove yourself, you can use all your energy for the actual task. When you stop trying to please others, you can direct all your attention toward execution. When you simply move toward completion, something remarkable happens. Your performance improves because your focus is undivided. Your results improve because your energy is concentrated. Your effectiveness improves because you're serving one master, the objective. Don't prove. Proving is performance for an audience. Just perform. Let your results speak louder than your explanations ever could. Let your execution demonstrate what your words never could. Don't please. Pleasing is weakness disguised as politeness. It's fear disguised as consideration. It's uncertainty disguised as flexibility. The master serves the mission, not the opinions of people who aren't in the arena. Just move. Movement toward completion is the only movement that matters. Every step should advance the objective. Every action should serve the mission. Every decision should accelerate progress toward the goal. I stopped asking, what will they think? And started asking, what will work? I stopped wondering, will they approve? And started wondering, will this advance the objective? I stopped caring, am I liked? And started caring, am I effective? This transformation didn't make me cold or heartless. It made me focused and powerful. When you serve the mission completely, you serve everyone better than when you try to serve everyone individually. The mission doesn't care about your personality. The objective doesn't care about your likability. The goal doesn't care about your approval rating. Results care about one thing: whether you did what was required to achieve them. You're not there to be liked. You're not there to be approved of. You're not there to be accepted. You're there to finish what began long ago in your training, in your preparation, in your commitment to excellence. Don't prove. Don't please. Just move. Move with the full authority of your preparation. Move with the complete focus of your commitment. Move with the undivided energy of someone who serves only the mission. When you stop trying to prove yourself, you start demonstrating yourself. When you stop trying to please others, you start completing objectives. When you simply move toward what matters, everything else becomes irrelevant. You're there to finish what began long ago. Everything else is distraction. Don't prove, don't please, just move. Fear is noise. Respect is calculation. Know the difference. Fear clouds judgment. Respect sharpens it. Fear weakens performance. Respect strengthens preparation. I have faced opponents who deserved my respect, masters of their craft, warriors of proven skill, fighters with legitimate reputations earned through genuine accomplishment. I gave them the respect their abilities warranted, but I never gave them my fear. Respect studies the opponent's strengths to prepare adequate counters. Fear magnifies the opponent's strengths to justify personal weakness. Respect acknowledges what the enemy can do. Fear assumes the enemy will do it better than you can respond. The difference between respect and fear determines whether you enter the fight to win or enter the fight hoping not to lose. One mindset creates victory. The other creates defeat before the battle begins. When you respect an opponent, you study them carefully. You analyze their techniques objectively. You understand their strengths realistically. You prepare for their capabilities specifically. Respect makes you a better fighter by forcing you to elevate your preparation. When you fear an opponent, you magnify their abilities irrationally. You assume their techniques are unbeatable. You exaggerate their strengths unrealistically. You prepare for imaginary capabilities that exist only in your anxious mind. But here's what most people don't understand about the relationship between respect and fear. They think respect means acknowledging that the opponent might win. Real respect means acknowledging that the opponent is dangerous enough to require your best preparation. I respected Sasaki Kojiro's speed and skill enough to prepare for 3 years before facing him. I studied his techniques, analyzed his patterns, developed specific counters for his strengths. But I never feared him enough to believe he was unbeatable. Let me ask you this. When you face a challenging opponent or difficult situation, do you respect it enough to prepare completely? Or do you fear it enough to assume defeat is inevitable? Respect says, this opponent is skilled. I must prepare thoroughly. Fear says, this opponent is too skilled. I cannot win. Respect motivates superior preparation. Fear justifies inferior effort. The warrior who respects his enemy trains harder, studies deeper, prepares more completely. The warrior who fears his enemy makes excuses, avoids training, and accepts defeat before fighting. I learned to transform every moment of potential fear into a moment of intensified respect. When I felt intimidated by an opponent's reputation, I used that feeling as motivation to study them more carefully. When I felt overwhelmed by their abilities, I used that feeling as a signal to prepare more thoroughly. This transformation of fear into respect changed everything about how I approached challenges. Instead of being weakened by strong opponents, I was strengthened by them. Instead of being discouraged by their abilities, I was motivated by them. Fear asks, what if they're better than me? Respect asks, how can I prepare to match their level? Fear wonders, what if I can't win? Respect declares, I will prepare until winning becomes inevitable. When you respect without fearing, you gain several advantages. First, you see the opponent clearly rather than through the distortion of anxiety. Second, you prepare realistically rather than inadequately. Third, you enter the contest to win rather than hoping not to lose. Most importantly, respect without. Fear allows you to learn from superior opponents rather than being intimidated by them. Every technique they show you becomes intelligence you can use. Every strength they display becomes a target for your preparation. I have learned more from opponents I respected than from opponents I dominated. The challenges that forced me to elevate my preparation taught me lessons that easy victories never could. Respect the opponent, study their strengths, prepare for their capabilities, acknowledge their skills. Take them seriously enough to give them your best preparation, but never fear them, never assume they're unbeatable, never accept defeat before fighting. Never let their reputation replace your preparation. Fear is noise that interferes with clear thinking. Respect is calculation that improves actual preparation. Know the difference? Use respect to elevate your readiness. Refuse fear that diminishes your capability. The opponent who deserves your respect deserves your best preparation. Give them both. But never give them your fear. Fear belongs to you, and you should never give away what makes you weaker. It's not arrogance, it's readiness. Walk in that. Stay in that. Become that. When preparation is complete, confidence becomes automatic. When training is thorough, certainty becomes natural. When readiness is real, acting as if you've won becomes acting as you are. This is where everything converges. Every principle, every lesson, every hour of preparation. This is the moment when all your training transforms from knowledge into being, from technique into truth, from preparation into presence. Fought 60 duels and never lost because I entered each one as if the outcome had already been decided. Not through wishful thinking, but through preparation so complete that any other outcome had become impossible. This is not arrogance speaking. Arrogance acts superior without foundation. This is readiness speaking. Readiness acts certain because the foundation has been laid, tested, and proven solid. When you have truly prepared, when you have genuinely trained, when you have actually done the work, acting as if you've won becomes the most honest thing you can do, because in every way that matters, you have already won. You've won the battle against your own doubt through relentless preparation. You've won the war against your own weakness through disciplined training. You've won the contest against your own limitations through sustained effort to transcend them. But here's what most people don't understand about acting as if you've won. It's not about pretending or performing. It's about embodying the truth that your preparation has created. It's about expressing the reality that your training has built. The master who acts as if they've won isn't deluding themselves. They're acknowledging what their preparation has accomplished. They're standing in the authority their work has earned. They're being who their training has made them. Let me ask you this final question. Have you trained like you intend to win? Have you prepared like victory is your birthright? Have you worked like success is your natural destination? If you have, then acting as if you've won isn't arrogance, it's honesty. If you have, then walking with certainty isn't pretense, it's authenticity. If you have, then moving with authority isn't fake confidence, it's real readiness expressing itself. I trained in mountains until my endurance became unbreakable. I practiced in all weather until conditions became irrelevant. I studied every technique until surprise became impossible. I prepared for every scenario until uncertainty became extinct. When I walked to meet an opponent, I carried 10,000 hours of preparation in my bones. When I stood across from an enemy, I embodied years of deliberate practice in my posture. When I drew my sword, I expressed decades of commitment in my movement. Acting as if I'd won wasn't arrogance. It was the natural expression of readiness, so complete that any other outcome would have been a betrayal of my own preparation. This is what you build toward. This is what all the training creates. This is what complete preparation produces, the ability to act with the authority of someone who has already conquered every obstacle that matters. You train like you would win, so you can act like you have won. You prepare like victory is inevitable, so you can move like victory is achieved. You work like success is guaranteed, so you can exist like success is your natural state. Walk in that. When you've done the work, when you've paid the price, when you've earned the right, walk with the full authority of your preparation. Don't apologize for your readiness. Don't minimize your capability. Don't hide your strength. Stay in that. Maintain the certainty that your training has built. Preserve the confidence that your preparation has earned. Protect the authority that your work has created. Become that. Don't just act confident. Become confident through the depth of your preparation. Don't just appear ready. Become ready through the completeness of your training. Don't just seem certain. Become certain through the thoroughness of your work. It's not arrogance. It's readiness. It's not pretense. It's preparation expressing itself. It's not fake confidence. It's real competence, carrying itself with the authority it has earned. You already have what it takes. The hours you've invested, the disciplines you've maintained, the challenges you've overcome, the growth you've achieved, you already have what it takes. Now, go prove it. Not to others, but to yourself. Not through explanation, but through execution. Not through words, but through the walking embodiment of everything your preparation has created. Act as if you've won, because you trained like you would. Walk in that. Stay in that. Become that. You already have what it takes. Now go prove it.